All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Ayin Ches. Tomorrow's the big one. We don't have so many throughout the cycle. Ayin Tes. We got Eileen, Tessie, Jack's old neighbors. All right. Is he gonna? All right. So, yeah. Oh, actually, two things. So learning today, first all should be Lili Nishmas, my mother-in-law, Mariam Rivka Bas, her father's name, right? Bas Chaim, and also
this room is also
yeah. Right, yeah, correct. And then also it should be a supposed for a full shlema for Mayor Dov HaKohen Ben Yenta. He should have a complete refuah shlema. Dov Kans. All right, so we are 5 lines from the bottom. Ayin Zayin Amid Beis. How gavra the Zavan Lechamra Lechavre Upash Lechad Zuze. So there was a person, we were discussing the case. There are certain times if a person, if he's paid not all the money, only some of the money. So if we say if he runs after the remaining of the money, that means he's not makna over on the base to the bottom. But we said if he sells it, he just gets a down payment. He's not running after the money. That means he was makna the item. So we say, what about if it was $1? He bought it for $100. He paid him $99. He didn't pay him 1 zuz. And he kept on coming back and forth for the zuz. So Yasser Ravashi v'Kama'ayin ba. So normally, if you come back for the money, it means you're makbid. But over here, we're talking about the 1 out of $100. So Kia Gavna Mai Kani Aloikan. So does what about this scenario? Does he acquire or not? So Amar Le Mordechai Ravashi Hachi Amar Avimi Mehagrani Mishmei the Rava. This is what was stated in the name of Rava. Zuza Pizuze. 1 zuz is like 100 zuz is like 1,000 zuz. In other words, if you do not pay 100%. And the guy wants his money, then it works the same way. He is not knocked over until it's fully paid. Either time we see it says kani. That was the case. So let's say the person was selling his field. He didn't, it was a bad field. He just wanted to sell it, right? It was a bad neighborhood, whatever it was, and he wanted to get rid of it. So it wasn't the fact that he was looking at the last dollar because he wasn't going to be knocking it otherwise. Rather, he just wanted to make sure he got paid for this, this garbage, for this piece of land that, he was very happy to unload. So 2 dots, top line of Ayin Ches and Aleph is today's daf. So Pshita, boy, this is Bunei B'mei, Avleishka, Bezav Masai. So it's obvious. In a case, a person's trying to sell a field of his for 100, and he can't find a buyer. So ultimately, he says, "Okay, fine, I'll go ahead and sell my 200 parcel land because I have enough, as you say, like honey." And then he keeps. If he comes back, if he's looking for the rest of the money for his 200, let's say he was paid 150, so he's looking for like 50 or whatever it was. He's not knocking it until he pays it off because he's, once again, like you said, he keeps knocking the guy's door, calling him up. Hey, where's my money? Ali boy, this is going to be Bemeya. But let's say he's trying to sell something for 100. And he wasn't able to go ahead and find a buyer for that. But if he would have really tried, he would have been able to go ahead and find a buyer for that parcel for $100. But however, he didn't bother. And he got lazy. He sold a different parcel for 200. And then he was looking for the money. So what is in that case? Do we say, in other words, just like a person, he just wanted to sell, so therefore it's such a case that he would be machna. Although, or maybe because he's looking for his money, and Lamaisa, well, if you're looking for your money, that means he wasn't machna, and the Gemara answers with a teku. So Shacher, Esachamar, Esakadar, V'chule, Sechale, Amita. So we said over here, he hires a worker, and they and they stiff him, so he's allowed to go ahead and basically either go ahead and trick him or go ahead and hire workers on, since they left him high and dry, he can hire at their expense. So Ad Kama, Sechale, some of Nachman, Ad Kadesh, up the amount of their wages. In other words, basically from that which they would have paid. Say but they wouldn't pay. Say Rav Nachman, it says 40 or 50. Right? Our mission was talking about 4 or 5, and over here it seems like tenfold. Over there, we're talking about a case of where the workers left their field there, and basically they left their tools by the field, and basically they said, if we're not here, you can use this, or basically this can be used to go ahead and hire workers. So that was the case of 40 or 50 Zeus. Fine. Naya Mishnah.
Naya Mishnah. Wow.
In other words, this was abandoned property of the workers.
No, it was right. Yeah, private, right, a personal property. Right.
Abandoned personal property.
And they left it there. They were supposed to show up. They didn't show up. So the owner of the field is allowed to go ahead and use those to go ahead and hire from that money to hire workers, which they caused them a loss. Right. One who goes ahead and hires rents a donkey to go ahead and walk it in the mountains. And instead he walks it in the lower valleys. All right. Or let's say he rents it to go ahead in a valley and he takes in the mountains. Sarmilim is the same distance. One is 10 mil, the other one's 10 mil. Umesa, and it dies. Chayiv, he is chayiv. We'll soon see why in the Gemara. Next case. One who goes ahead and who's going to hire a donkey to go ahead and walk in the mountains, and then it took in the valley. If it slips, putter. Now, the mountain is going to be slippier than the valley. So if it slipped in the valley, certainly it would have slipped and got injured or died in the mountains. So therefore, if he rented it to take it in the mountains, which the renter who was renting it out to
specify what you're renting it for.
Yes, this case they were when they're donkeys. It's not like you rent a car, you can do whatever you want with it, right? So, can't do whatever you want, right? But so if it ultimately died because it slipped, then you're putter because the mountain would have been even more, right? However, but let's say it overheated. Then you're chayiv. Why? Because the mountain has cool, fresh air, and the valley does not. So therefore, you're chayiv because it wouldn't have died in the mountain. Now, opposite. Because he rented it to go ahead and walk it in the warm valley. And he walked it up in the mountains. If it died from slipping, so the mountain is very slippier. The owner didn't know you're using it in the mountains. So therefore, chayiv or chayiv. However, but it get overheated in the mountains, and certainly would have overheated in the valley. Therefore, putter. And in machmas amal, if it was because of the walking up, the exhaustion from climbing, then he's chayiv because once again he said he was taking the valley, not in the mountains. One who goes ahead and he rents a donkey, the Ifrika, the Gemara will explain. We're talking about where it became blind, or whatever. It's machlokes said Ifrika, Shanasas, Angaria, or where the king seized it. King sees it, so the guy says, he gave me a donkey, but the king, his troops just say, so you know what? Wait until they return it, or wait until, or help assist your donkey carry the stuff, even though I can't see, but you can guide it. Nevertheless, tough luck on you. However, if it was Mesa Nishpura, if he was using it properly and it died, or it broke, then the owner has to go ahead and provide him with another donkey. Fine. That was the Mishnah. Now,
Ernst rented donkey.
Ernst rented donkey. That's right. So Mishnah Reisha, Mishnah saved the Komaflik. Now, in the Reisha, the first case we said, you take in the mountain, you take the mountains, you took the valley, or you rented for the valley, you took it to the mountains. Then he said, then you're chayiv because you wouldn't do what you're supposed to do. And then in the Seifa, we started to say, well, if it fell from slipping, then if you were in the less slippy place and it slipped, and for sure the slippy place would have been putter, right? But then it starts going to those cases, how it did. So why in the Reisha did it not, split up, as to how the animal died? So I mean, the Yana is the Reisha Shamisa Machmas Avir. Right? It could be that maybe it's just talking about the air, that some animals are better in the valley, and therefore he took it to the mountains, it could die that way. Or some animals do better in the mountains, and he's supposed to take it in the mountains. He took it in the valley, so therefore that's the reason why it doesn't say anything, because it can go either way. There is no like one is always slipperier than the other, one is always warmer than the other. Or that it died from exhaustion, right? Exhaustion. And you could say, what do you mean? So mountains more exhausting than the valley, but it could be that, one gets more exhausted in the valley because it's, once again, it's not used to maybe, there's the animals, you got the mountain, mountain goats or whatever it is, mountain lions. They're used to the high altitude. So therefore, if you take on a different altitude, therefore, that's why you're chayav. Rabbi Nachash, or a snake bit it, right? A snake bit, and that's how it died. So you weren't supposed to take it in the valley, and it got bit there, or you weren't supposed to take it in the mountains, and it got bit there. Whose opinion is this? This is Rabbi Meir. The reason why Chayvik is the Tanakama is really Rabbi Meir. Damar Kalamavir al Das Shal Balabayis Nikra Gazla. Anybody who goes against the das of the Balabayas, in other words, you told me you're going valley, and then you took mountain, you told me mountain, you took valley. So therefore, you're chayiv because you're basically a gazlan for doing something you weren't supposed to do, and therefore it was like you stole the property. So now the Gemara says, okay, that's what Rabbi Meir says. But which Rabbi Meir? High Rabbi Meir. If it's Rabbi Meir, I think we're going to get another Mishnah of dying, right? We just referenced this yesterday. The Tanan, Adam. When he goes ahead and gives his wool to his dyer, and he says, "Okay, make it for me red," and then he makes it black, or he tells him makes it black, makes it red. Rabbi Meir, nice and like the mate Samira. You know what you do? You just give him the money for the wool. Right, he gives. In other words, that he pays him for the wool. So in other words, that's all you got to go. That's all you pay him for. He has to pay him, according to Mary. He has to pay him the value of the wool because he damaged my wool. Right, he made it black. It was supposed to be red. Right, if that it improved more than the amount that the guy spent doing it, then you just give him for his costs. And maybe I'd see you saying if his costs are more ala shevach than the improvements, nice and less shevach, then you give him the lower amount of the improvement. So we see Rav Meir says that he's got to pay you for your wool because he caused damage to it. So he was mavir al das al das balabayis. So Gemara says, "Mimai." Who says that's the reason why he's chayav to pay the wool? Dilma shani hasa dekani b'shinui ma'isa. Because he did an act to that. It wasn't for the fact he was a maver al daito, right? Rather, the fact was that he did a shinui ma'isa. When he did a shinui, then that's the reason why the dyer acquired it, and therefore he has to pay for the wool. So Elo ha-Rameir. Rather, it was this Rameir. The Magvas Purim are referring to those collections of Purim. The time when the Magvas Purim, those collections were collected for the poor people to have the Suda and Purim. The Purim could only go for these of Purim, and Magvas Seir, Laiseir. And also, if it was collections for the city, only go to that city. Medakti Medavar was not so medaktik, whether it was from the Purim fund or it was from the city fund. We're not medakti Medavar of Aleichin Sagalim V'Sheitin of Eichlinason. Rather, they go ahead, they take calves and they shecht it and they eat it. And the Hamaisa Yipo Lekishal Tzedakah. Then they go ahead and sell the leftovers and the money goes to Tzedakah. And Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Magvas Purim LePurim. Only the collections for Purim are Purim Ve'ein Ha'ani Rasha Likach Men. And Ani can't even go ahead and spend any of those Purim money on anything else. In other words, Ella, you can't. He's not b'maimed on She'ir, Divi Rabbi Yaakov, Shama Rishon Reb Meir. Right. This, but he cannot go ahead and change unless there was a stipulation that was done in front of the Ansheir. And this is the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov that's said in the name of Rabbi Meir. In other words, what we see over here that Rabbi Meir says was he brought the shita that he was makpid. Right, that you have to do the Purim for the Purim and the other thing for the city and you can't switch over. Why? It's like being mavir al das balabayis. You're not allowed to do it. I shouldn't go mil mekel and I shouldn't go as mekel. So once again, the Gemara deflects. The double hasam nami, the diet to the Purim of the Yavle, the diet to the midachrin of the Yavle. So the person only gives over something for this purpose. If I give you $100 to be used for a specific purpose, whereas used for something else, then that'll be usher. So therefore, that's the reason why. It's not a case of being mavel das valbais. I only gave it for this specific reason. Otherwise, it would be gzela. So Elo Haramer Rabbi this Rameir. The title of the Bryce Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer Mishum Rameir. Hanaisin Dina Lani Likach Lo Chaluk. A person goes ahead and gives money to an ani to go ahead and buy a chaluk, right? Like let's say a shirt, right? Lo yikach by talis. He should not go ahead and get a different type of garment, right? Or talis. He gives the money for a talis. Lo yikach by chaluk. He should not go ahead and buy himself, a cloak or a shirt, whatever. Mipnei shemayver al das shel balabayis. Why? Because he's being mavir al das of the balabayis. I gave you money to buy shirts, and you bought pants, right? So therefore, that's also that's being mavir al das balabayis. So clearly, that's what Rameir says. So the Gemara says, "I the dilma shani hasam." There also the maybe people be chayshid. I mean, people will say, "Amar plani zavni levusha laplania anya zavin le." Right? So maybe they'll say, "Oh, so and so was supposed to give money, right? To he said he was going to go ahead and buy him a pair of pants, and all of a sudden they see the guy walk out with a new shirt, not new pants. He's a liar. So maybe if the guy buys what he wasn't supposed to buy." Right, he bought something different. The different type of one was full length, meaning like a tunic, right? And the other one was maybe shorter. So maybe we'll say it was different. He didn't buy it. Or glime, or right, he was supposed to go ahead and buy him a glima, right? Right, and he didn't go ahead and purchase it. He was supposed to buy him a shirt, and he didn't buy it. So even if that was the case, least in chashad. So then this Bryce should have said because of the chashad, but it said.
Sign kind of thing.
Yeah, in other words, he was supposed to. That was right. So the Gemara says, but they didn't say it. It says, but it says, no, the reason is because you can't buy the different type of garments, is because you bring Mavi al Dasha Balabais. No, it must be, you learn from him, because he changed what he was supposed to do. Anybody who changes is called a Gaza. And therefore, we can say the same thing in a Mishnah when a person goes ahead and rents. Right, he was supposed to take it in the valley, and he took it in the mountains, or the mountains took it in the valley. Therefore, he was maver al das balabais, and that's why he's chayv, and that's lefi shitas rameir. Now, hasech is the chamar ve'vrika, so my ve'vrika, so hachatagim on the arisa. Right, it means its site. Its site was either temporary or permanently, and therefore the donkey was not as useful as it was. And Rava says avaskeres. Right, he says no. It's referring to Avaskeres. Right, Rashi describes as worms that are like go into his maybe some sort of pinworms or something by his feet, and therefore it slows the animal down or damages it. He can't use it. And in such a case, we say, too bad. It's your loss, Mr. Renter. How Avaskeres b'milsa the Malka, right? Speaking of this lashon of because it was a person who. Avaskeres, but so he says, what was Avaskeres? So he said there was a case of Avaskeres, but Milsa the Malka. So it says there was some like worms in the clothing of the king. Right? Was this in silver or was it the gold? Right? Which one? Which of his clothes? So you get that. Some say Batlei Kasef. Some say he says it was the silver. But the worms don't go in the silver clothing. Therefore, the guy was a liar. Therefore, they killed him. And he could some say about the dove, and some say he said it was the gold ones, and the worms actually do go in the gold, and therefore they left him because he was telling the truth. First word of the wide lines. But let's say the kings took it, then. Oh, there's the second part, right? The second part became blind or wormy, right? Or the king's army took it. We can say, "Harei shachal lefanech."
You talking about the donkey from Mishnah?
Yeah, right. The king's army came and the guy rented it on Sunday, and then Monday all of a sudden the king's army came in and they took his donkey. We're only talking about now. They took it, they're going to bring it back in a couple of days. But let's say they take it and now he doesn't have a donkey anymore. Then the owner has to go ahead and provide a new donkey. Shmuel Amar. Whether it comes back or not, if it's on your way, halicha nitla, if it was the way he was going, then he says if it was going north and you were going north, So what happens is the king's army goes ahead and they take the donkey and they use it for a day or two, then they leave it on the road and they take another one and they continue their voyage north. So as long as you go ahead and continue on the way where you're going anyway, right? So then you'll get your donkey back. So therefore, okay, yes, it's a delay, but it's not the end of the world. But if it's the opposite direction, then he says, but if it's they're going the opposite direction, you're going, they were going south and you're going north, then the owner who rented it out is chayav to go ahead and provide you a new one. So a person goes ahead and he rents a donkey, and in this case that he vrika, right, and it was baked shinishtate. So he says, but over here in this case, if it is what's it called? It went crazy or it got blind. So he says, it's in front of you. Oshnas is Angaria or Angaria, but if it came in Angaria, if the army took it, now our Mishnah says, too bad. Over here it says, Chayiv lahami lo chamor. He has to go ahead and provide a new donkey, the owner. So the Gemara says, okay, so let's see. So bish lo Rav. I understand it according to Rav like kasha kamagar chazeres kamagar shena chazeres. Like Rav said, it depends. So one's talking about a case when he says it's your bad luck. It's where it's temporary. They're going to return it to you in 3 or 4 days, so you'll get it back in 3 or 4 days. And the other is they're never going to return it. That was the case where the owner has to provide a new one. El Shmuel, according to Shmuel, kasha. It'll be a kasha Shmuel. So then you ask the obvious question. Okay, why don't you give Shmuel's teretz? In other words, when he says it's your bad luck, you're going the same direction. You'll just get yours back in a minute. So you can't say that. Why? Hamiditani Seifa. The Seifa says Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Aimer. Rav Shimon Elazar says later on. He says if it was taken on the way that you were going, it says no. If you're going the same direction, then he just has to. Then it's your tough luck. Opposite direction is probably a new one. So Michlal, so if this was Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar who commented on the Tanakama, you can infer that Michlal, the Tanakama lo shani way, that this is only the Shita of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, right? And not the Shita of the Tanakama. So it's a contradiction of the Tanakama. So I'm the Chashmul. So La Mika Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Kai Kavasi. What's the big deal? I can say, like, does Rabbi Shimon Hazar differentiate between going my way or going opposite way? That's what he does, and that's what I say. So Anna Dabik Rabbi Shimon Hazar. So easy. It's not a kasha what the Tanakama holds, right? I hold like Rabbi Shimon Hazar, and therefore, and just like he said, Beferish, if it's going in my direction, then it's my tough luck because I'll get it in a couple of days. I'll get the delay. But if it's going in the opposite direction, then he has to provide me a new one. Or Iboy say, or you can say, Kula Rav Shimon Elazar. The entire Mishnah over there was Bryce was Rav Shimon Elazar. But Chasuri Mechsa is missing a part. For Hafkitan, this is how it should read. If one goes ahead and rents a donkey and became blind or went crazy, yeah, I'm sorry about your, that the donkey's not as good as we thought, but that's your mazel, and you got to continue using it. However, Mesa Oshinas Zangari, but let's say it died or it was taken by the king, then Then he has to go ahead and provide a new one. The owner has to provide a new one to the renter. So we're talking about and we're only talking about when it's not going his direction. But if it's going in his direction, they can say, hey, yours is in front of you. And this is the opinion of Shimon Elazar. If it was taken while and going the same direction, then this is your tough luck. It'll take you a couple of days, but you got the donkey back, and therefore you wait for yours. But if they're going in a different direction, then he has to go ahead and provide a new donkey. All right, we'll stop here. Shkech, everybody. Everybody have a